record button. So Dr. Molly Kaushal, our speaker tonight for Shiva and his presence with the Gadi community, a lot and love. And my apologies for those who haven't gotten the recordings. I have them. I will be uploading. You will get the link. It's only a matter of time. So I will make sure my internet woes are taken care of. So Dr. Kaushal, over to you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. I first of all would like to welcome all my friends, all my Gadi brothers who are, I hope there are some Gadi sisters also, not just brothers, I don't know who all are there. The people, Karen is there, she just said hi, Karen from Germany. I wish at some point we would be able to talk to her also. In between, if you will permit me, I would probably at some point use also Hindi, because I would want my Gadi brothers also to be able to understand what I'm saying about it. I'll see how I manage to do it. As all my friends know, I have spoken about Gadi so endlessly, and today when I sit in front of you, I feel all confused, and I really don't know from where to begin and where to end. This universe is so vast. I've been engaged with it for 2 decades now, more than 2 decades, so you can imagine what all runs through my blood. So far, the Gaddis and the Gaderan goes. So I decided that I will tell you stories. I'll tell you a lot of stories today. And I'll tell you stories, and maybe if in between I can also share my screen and show some of the photographs, that will be a good idea. So let me see if I can kind of go to my presentation and share the screen with you. No, I don't know if I can share the PPT with you. Anyway, we can do it as we go along. And so yeah, with the Gaddis, I wish I could share the screen, Sonali. At this point, I think you'll have to allow me to share screen.
Yeah, it is allowed on my screen. Multiple participants can share.
So, but I'm not able to show the presentation.
A little while ago, I saw it and then it disappeared again.
Can you see it now?
No.
Is it on the screen?
It came on the screen earlier, but I can't see it now. Do you have the share screen? You just have to click on that. I don't know. It should be easy.
Maybe share here. Is that so?
Yeah. Now we can see it.
You can see? Okay, but I won't be able to see. I can't see it myself.
We can see your screen.
Okay, so the first slide that you see, it is called Gaddhar. So I hope that's what you're all seeing. And the whole story begins from this Gaddhar. And what does the Gaddhar means? So I'm going to tell you stories about Gaderan, which is the Gaddhar also. I'm going
the size of the PowerPoint so we can see it. Because right now we can just see a small slide of it. So if you just increase it, just start the slideshow.
or just start this slideshow. Okay. Yeah. So can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So well, the first one was also the of Gadheran, and the second is also another view of Gadheran. Now, where is this Gadheran located? Why is it called Gadheran? What have Gaddis to do with it? So
Hello,
we're
ma'am.
going to
Sorry
talk.
to, hello, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt, but exact word is Gadheran. Gadheran.
Yeah,
Actually,
Gadheran.
Gadheran.
Okay, Gadheran.
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
So
ma'am.
this Gadheran or the Gaddhar is the homeland of the Gaddis, but before it became the homeland of the Gaddis, and we're not going to look at what historians have to say, because the historians have their own conjunctural stories about how the Gaddis migrated to this land, uh, from what all places they came. They themselves have some popular sayings, Ujuriya Lahore, te Vasya Bharmor. But apart from that saying, they have a whole narrative repertoire which makes them the actually that they were born or they were created by Lord Shiva, who Gaddhar is also his royal seat. So sitting on his royal seat, he created the Gaddi. And so Gaddis inherently belong, or the entire Gaddi identity, the marker, one of the spatial markers of their identity, then becomes the Gaddhar. Uh, the historians believe that they probably came here around 7th century, and then there were all kind of different waves of migration. The Chamba dynasty, Vanshavali, Sahil Varman actually has an episode in which it talks of the 84 siddhas and the establishment of the Churasi, which belongs to the 7th century. But we will take it that the Gaddis have been part of this right from the beginnings of the beginningless times, when Shiva decided to manifest himself and began to look for a home for himself after he married Parvati. And he chose, he said, so when he traveled to Bharmor, before he traveled to Bharmor, he started his journey according to one of the pilgrimages that takes place annually in the Bharmor Valley to Mani Mahesh Kailash. This is a picture 25 years ago of how Churasi looked. Churasi, or how Bharmor village at that time, now town, already looked at that particular time. And here, right in the behind the Devi Dar tree, you can see the Mani Mahesh temple. So this is the Churasi, where the Churasi temple is located. So one of the stories that we're going to talk about is also today is of Churasi, and what does Churasi stand for. And then we are going to talk, this is another view of the 96-99 Churasi. And this is the Churasi temple, the temple complex, which is actually this was a sacred grove that belonged to its original rural Bharmani. I remember in one of the talks that happened on Shiva and on this platform, there was, is there the Shakta Shaiva conflict being reflected of any of the mythologies? So Gaddi epic Saveen, of which we are going to talk mostly today, is replete with the references, and it begins right with Chaurasi, where Bharmani ultimately leaves her sacred grove, and 84 siddhas are established by Shiva here. But as the story reveals, that no place to which Shiva belongs can be devoid of the feminine. So Bharmani, before leaving, gave her place to Lakhna Mata. The iconography of Lakhna Mata, interestingly, is, if I can go ahead a bit, and I have a picture of Lakhna Mata with me somewhere. So if I can just bring, yeah. So this is the Lakhna Mata. Interestingly, Gaddis have a very lost history of the Buddhist presence, and we don't have any documents we don't have any oral tales that would tell us about the Buddhist Siddhas, because the Shaiv 84 Siddhas and the Buddhist 84 Siddhas, if you see in their classification, they keep shifting. And one of the very important Siddha who visited Sahil Varman was Charpatnath. And Charpatnath was originally a Buddhist Siddha. And in those 84 Siddhas, there was also a female Siddha called Likhnakari. And both these figures are present in the Gaddi mythology and also have their references in the Vanshavali, but their Buddhist linkage is completely forgotten. The idol that you see here is actually that of Mahishasur Mardani, and she's called Likhna among the Gaddis because she writes the fate, the destiny of humankind, right from the embryo state to the birth. And outside Lakhna's temple, I hope it is still there, there was a Chakravyuha, a yantra of Lakhna Mata, which is believed to help in the easy birth. And then as with Mata, she writes the fate of the newborn child. And I'll go back to my slides. And we stay with this Chaurasi temple complex for the while. So when Shiva gave birth, when she created Gaddis, he also for their livelihood created the goats, then tested the Gaddi before he gave him the goats. This is Mani Mahesh Kailash. This is also going to be a story about how Shiva came then from Bharmor and went to Hadsar and then to Dhancho and then to Gaurikund, Mani Mahesh Kailash, and established himself atop this sacred mount, which is worshipped and venerated as the Kailash. And very interestingly, because after marriage, Himalayan Kailash, the Kailash, that Mount Kailash is actually where is the parental house of Parvati. Very interestingly, my informants in that time used to narrate this story with great chuckle, and that Shiva could not be a Ghar Jamai. So he looked around the entire universe, found the center of that universe, the navel of the earth, and there then he established Mani Mahesh Kailash to spend his life as a householder with Gorja, with Gora, as she's called in the Gaddi tradition. And ever since he resides there in embrace with, it's an eternal union, eternal embrace of Shiva and Parvati, Shiva and Gora, who are constantly throwing their benevolent gaze on the Gaddi community and are always involved in their well-being. This is another view of Mani Mahesh. This is the pilgrimage that is happening. Things have changed a lot. Now helicopters go. So he created the Gaddi. There is this river Ravi, and Gaddi songs are replete with river songs. And one of the famous songs that I love very much is Tedi Medi Chal Teri, Tere Kande Rehne Do To Ji Mera Karda. So I don't remember the exact song, but what came to my... And here he himself, in that Chaurasi complex, then established himself as the Mani Mahesh, the Shiva. This is the Mani Mahesh temple. Now the Saveen, the oral narrative which sings of this, at that time itself, I think I managed to document about 6 to 7 versions of this. The Saveen is sung in different contexts. It is sung primarily at Nawala by the Brahmin bards who are called Bandas, but it is also used, a portion of Saveen is also used as a healing chant and is played on a particular instrument called Dhutaru, and I'll come back to that. And the Gaddi Chalangis, the whole healing happens through the healer chanter Chalangi, which belong to the Hali class. There are also Rajput parts, whereas Rajput and the most of the narratives actually are quite similar, apart from one narrative that I collected from Kirparam of Lal village. At that time, he was a Hali and also was a Musada singer at that time. And I spent almost about 3 months in house collecting and recording and understanding the Sabine. And it is one text that kind of explained a lot more about the other versions of the Gadi, apart from my very, very knowledgeable dear Guru, I will call, my Gadi mentor, I will call Nanku, who used to live in village Seri and who unfortunately is also no more. So now, as I said, that when Shiva created Gaddis, he also gave them his herd of sheep and goat to 10, and there are numerous tales of how he tested the Gaddis, and finally Gaddi. And interestingly, when you're talking about Gaddis, it is also a caste based category. To outsiders or to all the inhabitants that we can refer to Gaddi, but when we refer particularly in relationship to the herd and the Shiva story, then it definitely is a story that first and foremost belongs to the Rajput Gaddi. So this Gaddi, then he asked that, I mean, after creating the Gaddis, he asked them to sing his tales, to dance his song, to give him Nawalas. Nawala is an interesting, it's such an archaic ritual architectural rite that is still being preserved in Bharmor area and among the Gaddis, and it's annual worship. Even IGNC, I think, had 2 or 3 Navalas organized at its premises. So the Gaddis danced and they sang and they gave Nawalas, and that they thanked Shiva for having brought them into existence, from having lent his seed to this universe for the creation to happen. This is the Chaurasi temple complex where the Gaddis are then playing. And if I can play the Nawala. So see, this is a modern day Nawala we later see, but basically I'm showing this slide of the exuberance of the community to celebrate the presence of Shiva among themselves, whose essence they carry in many ways. So now, good that this slide has come up, and as I was just saying, that the celebration of the presence of Shiva, who visits them at the time of the Navala, and who also resides in Gadheran as the sacred Mount Shiva Kailash, Mani Mahesh Kailash, and the entire valley or the land, the horizontal space, is the water reservoir, Jaleri, jisko kehte hain. So it is the Yoni basin of Shiva, is the valley in whose lap the Gaddis prosperous and play and sing and dance. And this Jaleri, or in this Bhumi, or this valley, he has embedded himself permanently in the form of Mani Mahesh Kailash. And Kirparam's version actually sings of the whole creation of Chaurasi, which is not there in the version that are sung during the Navala otherwise. And there is this whole conversation between him and Parvati, and where he explains that this Mani Mahesh Kailash is my body, and I reside within it along with you as its soul. And there is this number 5, which is very, very relevant to this whole creation of Chaurasi, and it takes us back to our scriptural text of Panch Brahman and Shabd Brahman, and we will talk about the sound and the numbers at some other time. So apart from the Navalas, the Gaddis also take a pilgrimage. And so Shiva created also the Sippis. There is a Trilochan Mahadev myth, which is very, very popular. There is in Karamukh, there is where the Bujla and the Ravi, they meet at the point of the Karamukh. We have the temple of Trilochan Mahadev, who was the first person to have visited Shiva's Kailash. I'm not going to go into that myth because then we won't be able to talk really about the Shiva and Parvati's love story, which I want to come to as early as possible. But you will see that this is the traditional garb that they are wearing. The chola actually represents the body of Shiva. The dora is the matted locks of Shiva, and this chunji topi that you see, its top is the Shiva's Kailash, and the flaps are the inner abodes of inner chambers of Parvati's abode. So you would see that it is the presence of Shiva is not just in relationship to the geography of the place, in relationship to the creation of the human body, but also the very essence is carried in all aspects of Gaddi life, be it their houses, which are 3-storied and replicate their seasonal migration, which is also what Shiva does. So he is also a nomad, he is also a sheep herder, and he also travels up and down between Jandhar, the lower parts, and the dhars, the mountain tops of the Gaddi geography. Much has changed now, but the symbols stay much longer than the life. Life changes very fast. When I was working at that time itself in '96, the Gaddis were giving up herding. They were taking to agriculture. So education was still, it was there, and but higher education was available to very few people, and a lot of people went on to become peons or drivers or nurses. And today, of course, you have Gaddis working as IS officers, as doctors, as teachers, as professors. So there is no profession that is left in which you will not find the Gaddi youth engaged in. So, but despite that, and I would say also because due to that, because when I visited the Gaddi land, people lived their lives. It was not something to be showcased as a museum. It was what they were. And now, because the migrated youth is nostalgic, so a construction of a cultural memory or recollection of that cultural memory has become very important, and probably lot of technology because of that has brought in. So tradition has definitely revived, enriched, and I do not believe that the traditions get distorted or traditions die. It's just that they keep appearing in newer formats, and I'm happy that Gaddis are today so aware and so conscious of continuously reviving that cultural memory of theirs. So this is another. We are still at the pilgrimage, and the Gaddis are going to the pilgrimage to Mani Mahesh, and all these chelas with the chunji topi who belong to the Sippi caste are actually Professor Aditya Malik just in the last lecture talked about the rituals of embodiment, and here also Gaddi में सब इन सब चेलों में शिव का भार आया हुआ है, and they sit in this Chaurasi complex for 3 days, and they are shivering, and people come and take permission from them to proceed onto the pilgrimage, and they also answer all queries, all anxieties, and solution to all the ends that individual Gaddi may be going through at that time. It's a very bad footage of Mani Mahesh Jatar, so I would just take you towards the end of it. So we are already at the Dal, at the Mani Mahesh Dal. Yes. Okay, and go back. Stop. Stop this, yeah, and go to the next slide. And this you've already seen. So he not only gives them the chelas, not only the land, not only the herd, not only the rituals, but the goddess who's also permanently established there along with Shiva. And this is a three-storied house, and each story has a symbolism of its own, and not anymore, because the houses are concrete, people are already sedentary, there is no transhumance, but maybe some gadis in winter may shift back. Most of the gadis have also now permanent houses in Kangra, Palampur, Dharamshala, Bajnath, till Jalandhar. But traditionally, when few of them would be left behind, so there will be this vertical migration from the third floor to the second floor. And the last one is the obra, which has many symbolisms also associated with the concept of the womb, but I'm not going into it right at the moment. This I just wanted to show to my Gadi friends, if their houses still have this tolu, a little, I think Aditya also showed that little window, so that, the warmth comes in and the light comes in and the wind is, so these are these very tiny holes in the walls of the wooden houses called tolu, and I just thought that I will share it with my friends. So this is the Nivala ceremony. These are the 9 streams of the celestial Ganga, but its symbolism is at so multiple level. It takes you at one level to the 9 Agnis, the concept of the entire architectural, right? The role of the Agni, the role of the Prajapati, which comes to this mandala. This was shared recently with me by Ramlalji, which is the new, very, very decorated mandala. But what is important is these 32 squares, and if time would permit, we will talk about it. And this is one of the old, and it is at this architectural rite, at this Nivala ceremony, that the Saveen about which we're going to talk from now onwards till we end the lecture. I would show you one very old footage of those times of Nivala. You saw one just before this, was very different, but no, sorry, this is not the one. So I stopped, and so we said that this is the ceremony now. We are more or less have that wider background in which the Saveen is sung. So Saveen is one of the sacred narratives and the most important narrative of the Gadi mythological repertoire. It is the history of the land, history of its people, and above all, it is the history of Shiva's own life on earth. Uh, it is canonical. It's canonical. Shiv Puran that we have read is something that we should always keep in mind and listen to this new story of Shiva's journey on this earth till he decides to then give the reins to Krishna, to Vishnu, and forever just reside atop his mount, bringing an end to his earthly story with Parvati, with demons, with devils, the fights. The Gadi Saveen has 4 cantos, and I'm not talking about Kirparam's version now, because Kirparam's version has many more cantos, but what is popularly sung, what is sung at the Nuwala, and what the Gadis understand as identify immediately as the Gadi Saveen, which consists of basically 4 Kalis, and first Kali is Anaj Guru, the second Kali is Haran Shikar, and it's very important. These titles are also very important. At some point, if I can, I will talk about Haran Shikar, this entire title. Then you, of course, have Shiv Vivah, and you end it with Garadin, which is the last canto. We're going to stick with Shiv Vivah, and also when the Nuwala is held, when the Jagran of Nuwala is held, the ceremony is held, the patron generally, or the audience would say that they want to listen to this Kali or that Kali. So apart from many Anjalis, which may be from Gadi Ramin, one of the cantos is chosen for the night. So it's not that at any one sitting the whole of the Saveen would be sung. And Garadin is very, very important for healing chanters. Haran Shikar and Shiv Vivah is something which is, at least in those times, were the 2 of the most favorite cantos. Shiva at one level is, of course, Anadi. He's not born. He's Swayambhu. He's the self-emergent one. But Gadi Saveen also sings of him as one of the 3 sons of Anaj Guru, jisko Shivara Buddha, his father. And somebody, I think in Nilima's lecture, was asking about that Shiva has a daughter in the east, and who is that goddess? So that goddess is goddess Mansa, and while in Assam, Bihar, Bengal, she is Bishari, she is the serpent goddess, and she is the daughter of Shiva. In the Gadi Saveen, she appears as Shiva's mother. Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma are the mind-born sons of Anaj Guru. And after several tests, Anaj Guru finds that actually Shiva is the one who is the most appropriate among his sons to take his to rule the 3 worlds. So after giving the Triloki ka Bhar or Triloki ka Raj to Shiva, the creation has to take place. And I want you to stick to this one very interesting episode when we go to the Shiv Vivah thing. Is he says, अब यहाँ रचना होनी है, तो आपको जगन माता से जल इस्तरबामी मिट्टी लेके आनी है. So now Jagan Mata resides in the deep waters. And so first Vishnu goes, first Brahma goes, because he is the firstborn, and he says, Jagan Mata, mujhe apni istarbami mitti do, give me the soil of your womb. And she says, kaun hai tu? And he says, main Brahma hu. So he says, koti so Brahma hue, tu kaun sa Brahma aa gaya? And Brahma doesn't have an answer, so he comes back and he doesn't get the soil. So does Vishnu go, and he also doesn't know which Vishnu he is, so he comes back. But Shiva, my clever Shiva, goes and he knows his answers so well, and he says, जगन माता मैं गौरी शंकर हूँ. So he's put Gorja before himself. He's brought the feminine and the masculine and the whole concept of Anaj Guru with the seed, the three most important elements for the creation to take place. And then Jagan Mata says, Acha tu paida ho gaya. And then she stretches her hand and Istar Bami Mitti is given. And then a whole lot of cycle of myths then happen to the creation of this universe. And I'm jumping that to now come to the to Haran Shikar. And this is the second canto of the second canto. I'll come to this slide later. Maybe we can just stay with this image. So Shiva is sleeping in his golden palaces on golden beds in Kashmir. There is a lot of relationship between the Kashmir Shaivism, relationship of Shiva to Kashmir Shaivism coming to Bharmor, maybe through Kashmir. But there is definitely a connection of which the Sabine itself also sings about, apart from whatever historical evidences and documents may exist. And then he has this dream, and his praja is complaining and saying that you are sleeping in your golden palaces on your golden bed, and how your praja is suffering. There are dant and bhoot all over who are ruling, and as the king. So Sabine is always voting for Shiva the king. We have here Shiva the yogi, Shiva the king, Shiva the lover, Shiva the householder, Shiva the healer. So all these forms of Shiva are present in Gaddi Sabine. So Shiva decides, of course, that he must go, and there's a whole narration as to how the preparations are done, and then how these demons are killed. I would like you to pay attention to the names of these demons. The first demon he kills is the Sunyar. I may be not recollecting the exact this thing for Sunyar Danu, Lohar Danu, Rakta Bij, and there are these four kinds of demons that exist, and he kills them one after the another. And interestingly, after he's killed everybody, the whole earth is filled with blood. He is in the dark forest of Kajli Ban, left all alone. The Sabine sings so beautifully of his aloneness that I will just give you that from that portion from Sabine. I will tell you in a while. But this whole episode of Haran Shikar and the names of these danas coincides with one of the artis that is sung when the Ghat Sthapana is happening, when this architectural rite is happening, in which this arti is called Char Yug Ki Aarti. And in this Char Yug Ki Aarti, pehla yug Trambe ka, dusra yug Sone ka, तीसरा युग चांदी का और चौथा युग मिट्टी का. So this whole idea of the concept of the time is through the spatial configuration and the objects that fill the space at that particular given era. So if it's Copper Age, तो सब कुछ तांबे का है, मिट्टी तांबे की, बर्तन तांबे की, आदमी तांबे की, and if it is Sunyar सोने का युग, तो सब कुछ सोने का, but the creation, the human being happens in the मिट्टी का युग, और वो दानव बन के हरण शिकार में रक्त बीज की कथा जो, but it is not the रक्त बीज कथा that you see in the Durga Shapsati. It's a different, if it's a different tale, but it is true कि इस रक्त बीज को मारने के लिए शिव जो है वो काली को अपनी छाती से पैदा करते हैं और उसकी त्रिशूली भी ले लेते हैं, another शाक्ता मोटिव, और फिर वो लड़ाई होती है और रक्त बीज का वध होता है. And उसके बाद, like you have in the textual interpretations of the Mahakal, this Mahakal who's killed all the four Danavas, or the whole notion of time is standing, and Nanku sang so beautifully and said कि शिव उस वक्त ऐसे अकेले रह गए जैसे कि एक ढोल जिसकी आवाज उसे छोड़ के चली गई और वो अकेला रह जाता है. जैसे कि पंछियों की पूरी डार जो गांव को छोड़कर चली गई है और वो आकाश सूना रह जाता है, उस तरह से शिव जो है, शिव मेरा रह गया कल्लम कल्ला. So this is a whole thing that they sing, and beautiful metaphor that they come up with. And then, but Shiva has a Neeli Ghodi, and she has tricks up her sleeve, and she takes Shiva to Hyupat Desh, the abode of Parvati, और शिव के Hyupat Desh के बाहर उसका घोड़ा जो है खड़ा हो जाता है, and Shiva asks for water. So this is why I started with Anash Guru and the Jagan Mata who resides in the waters, and Shiva has to prove that he is Gauri Shankar before he can get the mitti from the womb. I think I'm exceeding my time, so I must kind of quickly wind up this whole discourse. And Parvati comes out to give him water very reluctantly because she was playing with her toys, with her dolls, and then she looks this strange man outside asking for water, and so an argument happens. While Shiva recognizes her immediately as the goddess because she has a trident, Parvati plays with him, and she says, "तूने इतने सारे तालाब भरे हुए पानी के, इतने सारे समुद्र पीछे छोड़ आया, तो कौन से जल को तोपने? What kind of waters are you looking for, strange man, that you come to my door?" And Shiva replies कि मैंने खेला हरण शिकार और सारे तालाब खून से भर गए, all the oceans are full of blood, and I'm looking for the sparkling clean waters. मैं कंचन जल तोपता हूँ. And in some versions he drinks the water, in some this argument goes on, and she says, "Look at yourself, you're so sickly and you're so thin, और ज़बान तेरी तोते सी चलती है, लक तेरा पतला जैसा, और तूने हरण शिकार खेला होगा." So it goes on, and then Shiva leaves, but once he leaves his breath with Parvati, and Nanku so beautifully used to sing and tell कि घर आके कैसे पेट के बाहर मेरा शिव गिरता है, कभी उठता है कभी गिरता है, प्राण उसके पार्वती के पास है, और जब तक वो पार्वती को प्राप्त नहीं कर सकता है उसको चैन नहीं है. So in some version Bhatt Brahman, in another Shrikant Brahman, in some version Brahma himself then goes to Parvati, this Hyupat Desh with the proposal of marriage, and Parvati says कि ठीक है, अगर शादी करनी है तो लिखनोत्री एक होती है जिसमें कि लिखा जाता है इतने दिन में शादी होगी, इस दिन शादी होगी, ये शादी की शर्तें हैं, और अगर आप पूरी नहीं कर सकते हो उस दिन तक तो ये शादी कभी नहीं हो सकती है. तो वो 8 दिन में she says within 8 days you must come and marry me, and in 8 days you should and then you should be dressed as a groom. 8 दिन में आपको जो है हाँ बोलिए, is someone there? So he has to actually, this leads to the whole revelation of Shiva as the cosmic Purusha, जहाँ पर उसको किरकिटी रानी अपने चोले में लगानी है, उसको चांद और सूरज अपनी आंखों में लगानी है, भ्यानु तारा, the evening star on his back and on his. So there are a lot of these conditions which actually, as Nanku said, कि आप पूछते रहते हो कि ये सब कैसे हुआ, पहले क्या बना, पहले कौन आया. तो शिव विवाह में जब शिव तैयार होता है पार्वती की ये सारी जितनी शर्तों को लिए हुए कि कौन कौन शादी में आएगा, शिव कैसा दूल्हा बनेगा, क्या होगा, तो एक एक करके ये सारी चीजें जो हैं वो विश्व में began to manifest. So the phenomenal world begins to manifest itself, and so Brahma comes back and tells Shiva कि तेरी शादी तो हो नहीं सकती है, उसने तो 8 दिन में इतनी शर्तें लगा दी है, तू कहाँ से सूरज चांद अपनी आंखों में, बिजली रानी कहाँ से आंखों में डालेगा, किरकिर की रानी. And it goes on, and then Shiva just laughs and says कि बाकी सारी शर्तें तो ठीक है, पर ये 8 दिन जरा ज्यादा ही देर हो गई, you know. So he laughs, and then the wedding preparations happen, and Gorja hears about it, and she says that कि मुझे तो नहीं करनी शादी. तो एक एंचली बहुत खूबसूरत है जिसमें वो अपने मामा की गोदी में जाके रोने लगती है और पूछती है तुम्हें जो दहेज में क्या देगा क्या नहीं देगा, एंड वो 9 गजपाला उससे दहेज में मांगती है, which is that turns the entire land into a huge, there is huge rain in the lower parts, and there is snowfall and the whole world is engulfed in this snow. And then she laughs that I'll see how Shiva comes to marry me. So finally, when Shiva reaches, he's clever, he's the Lord of the universe after all, but he thinks that he should also test Parvati. तो वो जब ध्रुपद देश पहुंचता है तो अपने को कोड़ी कलंकी बना के बैठ जाता है. So he becomes a leper. And in the meanwhile, Parvati thinks she should go and look at कि उसका groom दिखता कैसा है. After all, इतना, when she comes and she looks at this leper, she is inconsolable and she laments and she curses everybody, including her parents who agreed to marry her to this guy. And she comes back home and she commits suicide. And then Shiva gets to know about it. And then he reaches there, he revives Parvati, comes back in his cosmic, beautiful form. And then they wed. And then these frictions go on. And there are many. Since my time is up, I'm going to leave you at this, concluding that every tension that happens between Shiva and Parvati in all the episodes of all the Kalis of the Savin are the portrayals of the tension between the masculine and the feminine, and each of this friction leads to the revelation of a new aspect of life on this earth, whether it is healing, whether it is the Ganga Avtaran, which again is a very, very different tale. I don't have time to go into that. And the concept of the Shiva and Shakti and their relationship as an absolute realm, Shiva and Parvati are indifferentiated. And when the friction happens, of this epic are as deep as any Upanishadic, Puranic, or Vedic text that we have. And with this, I would stop, I think, because my time is up. But I want you to look at this beautiful healing instrument, which is called Dhutaru. अब गरुड़ीन में एपिसोड है जिसमें कि उसको रिवील कराना है पार्वती को कि तेरे सिर में कौन सा ठाकुर बैठा हुआ है जिसको तू छुपा के रखा हुआ है, मैं नहीं देख सकती हूँ. और वो ठाकुर ऑब्वियसली गंगा और उसके साथ जुड़ी बहुत सारी और कहानियां सवीन में, और सवीन जब मुसादों में गाई जाती है तो उसकी एक्सप्लेनेशन में आती है. आई डोंट हैव अगेन टाइम टू टॉक. पर शिव को वो नचाना चाहती है क्योंकि शी नोज कि वो नाचेगा तो उसकी जटाएं खुलेंगी और जो भी छुपा है ठाकुर उसका जिसे वो देख नहीं सकती है वो नीचे गिरेगी. इसके साथ वो कामाख्या की बड्डी मोहिनी को साथ में जोड़ लेती है. इट्स सो इंटरेस्टिंग. एंड दिस बड्डी मोहिनी, दिस कामाख्या की देवी, you know, she already has a grind to axe with Shiva because वो पहले त्रिलोक की मालिक थी और शिवा ने उसके राजपाट ले लिए. तो कहती अच्छा आज मुझे मौका मिला अपना बदला लेने के लिए. तो फिर एनीवे शिवा को नचाने के लिए शिव कहता है मैं कैसे नाचूं, मेरा तो कोई बाजा ही नहीं है. तो शी से कौन सा बाजा चाहिए तेरे को, यू नो. एंड ही से मेरे तो सहज बाजे. तो पार्वती अपनी फिर बॉडी से कार्व करती है ये बाजा. ये द टू गॉड्स आर हर ब्रेस्ट. दिस इज हर आर्म. अपना बाल तोड़ के वो उसका स्ट्रिंग बनाती है, उंगली तोड़ के उसकी वो की बनाती है. सो दिस होल धुतारू इज द बॉडी ऑफ पार्वती. And the sound that emanates from this body is what makes Shiva dance. So jab baja bajta hai, then Shiva stands up and he dances and Ganga falls down his matted locks, जिसको भगीरथ लेके भाग जाता है. वो पार्वती नाराज होके अपने घर चली जाती है. शिवा अंतर्ध्यान हो जाती है, अपनी ताड़ी लगा लेते हैं और संसार में अंधकाली फैल जाती है. So, and then the story moves. So this is what I wanted to show you. This is our head. I don't think I can see the slide. Not been. So this photo, I mean, some of you, रामलाल जी, ये कान की बहन की शादी है जिसमें मैं आपको पहली बार मिली थी. So I just wanted to show you Gaura as Gaura, and this is the. I can't show you the whole. Oh, anyway,
हाँ
है ना?
नहीं नहीं
So,
हाँ बिल्कुल
हाँ. So with this, I
कान की शादी
stop my कान की बहन है. I stop my presentation for today, and I'm open to all questions. Thank you very much for listening.
We should give you an applause. Thank you. I think most of us are muted, so you couldn't hear the echo of the applause here. But thank you so much for that wonderful insights about the Gaddi community and the myths associated with them. And at this time, I would love to take questions of whoever wants to raise their hands. They can do it right now. And the best part of this presentation is that the Gaddis are present. You know, they are there. It's so wonderful that, you know, you're still in touch with them. You're a part of them. And all these stories that we learned so much today from, you know, Lakshma Mata, what you said. And I missed that part about, you know, the Buddhist thing that you had talked about. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I wish I could tell you more about it, but as I told you that there is no memory of that part is left, except that very conjuncturally you can think that Charpat Nath, because was a Siddha who was one of the 84 Siddhas of the Buddhist this thing, and Likhnakari was one of the Buddhist Siddhas, and the Likhnakari and Lakhna. So if you go etymologically and you go in terms of the transfers that happen, interchange, that Shaiv Siddhas went into Buddhist Siddhas, but to say that you have any records of you do find अभी भी जैसे हडसर में जो शिव की मूर्ति है, जो शिव है, its iconography is exactly like that of a Buddha's iconography. तो वो बहुत Tibetan look की वो मूर्ति है हडसर में. You still find lot of, अब तो बहुत माइनिंग होती है, सड़कें बनती है, तो अभी भी क्योंकि नेपालीज के साथ, गुरखास के साथ, तो वो इतिहास अभी भी गीतों में और सब ये है गद्दीज के पास, और वो गुरखास वहां पढ़ते, और गुरखा फाइट्स के बारे में भी है. But to say that there is any material that exists to support the argument that what was the Buddhist period. So I think Goetz has talked about it in his book, the temples, the wooden temples of Chamba, but thoda bahut shayad kuch milega.
Ma'am, and let's take the first question. Dr. Sanjeev Sharma from JNU. Your question, please.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much, Professor Kaushal, for a wonderful presentation. And I'm audible. Yeah. So thank you very much. And you have described in very detail. And I read one reference in some literature that in Rig Veda, it was mentioned that like the people living in the Ravi area, and they are rearing sheep and goats and wearing colorful dress, which is one of the reference that these Gaddi communities are the local community and they are not coming from the other area. The second things, we have a living evidence from the 6th century BC. So my question is that because you have a lot of archives and the documentation you have done on Gaddi communities, so just I want to know that how your archives or the documentation is helpful for the modern Gaddi community to revive and conserve the Gaddi culture. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have references to this part of the of the land and to people and to the professions that is there in the Ashtadhyayi also. I've not read the Skand Puran, but I believe there are some references also in the Skand Puran. But जो मेरी जो चीज मेरे लिए बहुत अहमियत रखती है और जिसके बारे में मैंने लिखा है अपने जितने भी मेरे आर्टिकल्स जो गद्दीज के ऊपर लिखे गए, is for me what is important is that how the Gaddi looks at himself. Historical evidences जो available हैं वो भी conjunctural हैं, हम उनको बिल्कुल प्रामाणिक नहीं मान सकते हैं. और वंशावली की भी जितनी कहानियां हैं उसमें मिथ का बहुत बड़ा रोल है. तो I have argued that we should be looking at the oral narratives and the way that the Gaddis look at themselves, talk about themselves, that becomes much more important in terms of what you're saying कि हमको कैसे अपना revive करना है. या तो वो आपकी कहानियां, वो आपके गीत, the understanding of your land, the understanding of your sheep. I mean, there was so much of traditional knowledge at that time when I went. There was this 14-year-old boy जिसको कम से कम 100 घासों के नाम पता थे, उसे पता थी उनकी क्या क्या इलाज हैं उन बीमारियों के. It was like on his fingertips. So that knowledge system, if you can still sustain it while you widen your horizons, that is much more important than to, because many great, there are no very strong historical documents available that can talk about the origin of the Gaddi community.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
You talked about self-identity, and that's really interesting, that looking at Gaddis from the point of view of what they think about themselves, but also juxtaposing it with ascribed identity and how the two differ. You know, the audience.
Your voice is echoing. I can't hear you. Your voice is echoing.
Okay, so is it better now? Let me see if. Yeah, most of the people are muted. So, okay. So what I was saying is, like, I really like the fact that you talk about focusing on their oral narratives, where you're looking at them from the point of view of how they look at the self. But also, if we juxtapose it with ascribed identity and see how the viewers are viewed by others as well, like their own about them, their own self, and how people view them, the audience, and what part of it do they want to show and what they do not want to show, what is hidden and what is revealed. So I don't know if during your research you came across something.
No, I think it is very important. It's very important also to look at how people have presented the Gaddis in whether in various monographs, but even more importantly that I talked about is of the census. You know, so how this whole concept and the Gaddis ये अपने आप बताएंगे कि उसकी वजह से कितनी परेशानियां भी हुई. छतराड़ी से गद्दीज को जो है शेड्यूल ट्राइब स्टेटस नहीं दिया गया, हड़सर के ब्राह्मणों को नहीं दिया गया. And when this whole census became, first census में everybody was a Gaddi. Then they started asking them caste-wise configuration. And so many of the Brahmins said they were not Gaddis, but they were Brahmins. So there was one census in which there was a very minuscule population of the Gaddis as reflected in the census. So then also, whenever we are writing about any tribes, you know, it's not about the Gaddis only. We go as some kind of Puritan scholars. So you will see the whole discourse कि उनकी women बहुत chaste होती हैं, उसकी women बहुत pure होती हैं, उसका women promiscuous होती हैं, गद्दी मेहनती हैं, या वो ट्राइबल बहुत गंदे हैं, वो लेजी हैं. So we have this whole colonial framework, and we also have a whole Brahmanical framework in which we try to slot people, slot communities, and then we have an administrative system which encourages people to look at themselves as compartmentalized wholes in smaller micro identities than the larger identity. So that is why it becomes very easy to look at the oral narratives. But oral narratives, again, I mean, if I were to read this, Saveen, without the explanations, the entire comparisons that have gone into the notion of the sound and of the architectural rights and the mandalas, is, you know, there was this notion of the lower rung in the society, they peeped into what was happening. You know, they just heard. And so these are like reworked, distorted versions. And sometimes when they want to be very benevolent, they'll say, lok hai, simple hai, और उसकी अपनी भावना है, अपनी भावना से बह के उसने कुछ कथा कह दी तो हम उसकी इज्जत करते हैं. You know, so these discourses are very relevant, and it is very important that the Gaddis themselves first begin to understand, and they don't say कि नहीं जी हमारे में भी उमा सती है और हम भी उमा के बारे में जानते हैं. Of course, the interaction has been, and especially of the pastoral transhuman Gaddis, these interactions are so wide, and a lot of mendicants, the Siddhas, the wandering minstrels, the Naga Babas, and Naga Baba, one of the Naga Babas played such an important role. Unki samadhi, unka mandir hai 84 mein, introduced education, horticulture, so was played a very important role. But these oral narratives, if we have to understand them not as an isolated sung genre, and so the whole ecology, the entire geography, all the rituals, the larger narrative repertoire, all that has to be linked into, because each thread is connected to the other thread. And unless it was not easy for me to understand Saveen if I had not looked at these threads, and then I had not gone back to look at what are the fundamental categories with which human beings think and with which they organize their world. So that is what is very important.
Thank you. And let's take the next question. Chakravarti Mahajan, if you could ask your question, and if you could tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hi, Professor Kaushal. That was a brilliant presentation. I really enjoyed it. And you see, when you were talking about all this, what was coming to my mind was the whole landscape in which and how this landscape floats. And then when Dr. Sanjeev was asking, was actually telling that, you know, Ravi River and the pastoral communities, I was thinking of Niladri Bhattacharya's recent work, wherein he says that, you know, the Doabs in Punjab, they were inhabited by pastoral communities always. The kind of landscape you see in Punjab today is a recent colonial creation. It is the same time when census was being carried out, and the British, they were establishing canal colonies. So, I mean, the landscape flows, and I think that brings me to the question. You were talking about Ujdiya Lahore te Vasya Parmor, and I think that's the kind of narrative we keep on hearing, and also the connection, the Jogi Reet. If you see from Chamba to Lahore, you see a number of Jogi shrines, the Siddha shrines all over. I mean, Professor V.N. Goswami has worked on the Jakhpat shrine. And then you have, you know, Heer Ranja, that famous kissa, wherein you have Jogi, this whole Tila of Gorakhnath, where Ranja goes and becomes the Jogi. So I think there's a whole connection in with the landscape. And then I was also thinking, I think these are the two questions. So one, what is the connection with Lahore? Because, you know, Ravi flows from Chamba to Lahore. And then the pastoral communities also move along the riverine courses. And the second thing is, when you were talking about Kashmir, I did my PhD fieldwork in Doda, which is somewhere in between Chamba and Kashmir. And you see, when you were talking about Nawala, uh, in Doda, people celebrate this overnight festival, which they call as Khadal. And these are yogis which conduct this tantric festival, which is overnight, and in which Bhedu is sacrificed, and you have to finish the whole meat in one night, in that particular night only. So the time frame is very important. So I don't know, like your lecture evoked so many questions, and I think that was brilliant. So maybe, if you want to react to them, fine. Otherwise, we can always.
Yeah, I will definitely like to react, because the moment you talk of Doab and you talk about going back to that entire history, then we have to go to the Gurjara state. The whole idea of what this Gurjara state was and where these pastorals are coming, what could have been their migratory routes, which take you to another level of investigation altogether. As far as and that's very interesting, and that is why I brought in the Ashtadhyay, and also if there are references in the Skand Puran, it would be very, very interesting. And as you say about the yogis, so ye sabko malum hai, when I was talking about the Chalangis, so this whole tantric ritual that is happening, it's not gar is gareen and gar dalna is just part of it. There are a whole lot of rituals, healing rituals that the Chalangis get into, and the folk tantric notions of the body and of the healing, and especially which are flowing from the Panchpiri and which are flowing from the Gorakhnath. And the Gaddis have a very interesting, another epic, which is called Gugdi. So, which is, and actually, again, it's a very feminine interpretation of the Gugga Jahatpir, because the Gugdi is the one who leads the entire thing, and wo kaise chura ke lati hai, the connection with Ajayapal, because Ajayapal is not just in the Himalayas. You find Ajayapal right down to Gujarat. So all these connections have to be looked into by historians. I think we have not worked on the Gaddis. Gaddis को actually पढ़ा ही नहीं गया है. Gaddis के ऊपर बहुत कम काम है और बहुत peripheral है, और we need to really look at the history of this entire belt, including Gaderan. Yeah.
Thank you. And I had Dr. Karen's hand raised. I can't see it right now. Would you like to ask a question? Any other, Dr. Karen, would you like to ask questions?
I could ask a quick question. Thank you, Molly, for this wonderful talk. I learned a lot.
Thank you, Karen, and hi, I'm so happy that you've joined. I know how early it must be in your part of the world.
No, it's not early. It's midday, so that was perfect.
Okay.
Sunday midday,
right.
No homeschooling. Thank you very much. As you know, I work, perhaps for the others, I'm working at a German university, but I've done most of my fieldwork in Uttarakhand, the neighboring region. And that my question, of course, comes from my experience from recording stories and looking at deities and devis in that region, where I found that a lot of the stories and the mythology told are actually very much related to the community's view on themselves. And this is the question I had, and I think Anjali also had the same question. Does this emphasis on female Shakti show in the status of women, or the view on women, or the way women see themselves in Gaddi community?
It's a very interesting question, because the myth and the present day organizational structures have changed so much. But I have a whole huge article on negotiating spaces, spaces of empowerment for the Gaddi women. And अभी अगर मैं वो सारी चीज़ों को लेके आऊँगी, कुछ गद्दी मुझे लगता भी नहीं कि उन्हें इन चीज़ों के बारे में आज that they would even know about it, and even if they know, some of them even may get offended by it. But they, it has a very interesting history, and traditionally Gaddi women were much more empowered while being in that patriarchal structures, patrilineal structures. The negotiating spaces for Gaddi women were much more. And in fact, the whole kinship history, though Phillimore has done a lot of work, is also not well explored, because when I was working at that time and I went to Kukti, I realized that even within this patriarchal, patrilineal, there were, in Kukti, the families were having double descent, you know, so from the mother and as well as from the nani ki taraf se, or there is a very interesting presence of Kelu Devta that I think my Gaddi friends even now would be aware of. And I did a lot of work on this Kelu Devta. It is like Jak in the Uttarakhand, jo after marriage, you know, he is in the hair of the woman and he comes along with her. So every woman has a Kelu Devta, and unfortunately, the writings have portrayed Kelu as abortion ka Devta, bachon ka Devta, but it has very deep interrelationships between how the woman and the man's family, they come together through various matrilineal and patrilineal deities. So I would send that article across to you on your mail, because it's a huge article. Second was also about the inheritance, property inheritance, and it was strictly in the male line earlier. राजा के टाइम में प्रॉपर्टी जो है वो औरत को नहीं जा सकती थी, and also will not be given to the, even if you have a daughter, so even the daughter's husband or children did not have access to. So if the man is left without a legitimate heir, the property would either go to the clan or will revert back to the Raja. This was a collective property and nobody had an exclusive right over it. So in order to work a way through it where the property could be retained within the family, the Gaddi patriarchal system evolved mechanisms which gave a lot of leeway to women. So I have kind of looked at three kind of women, and all three now I think forms are extinct because inheritance laws have changed. Women have equal right in the property. Parents willingly distribute. But when I was there in the 90s, I still remember that it was an issue, and there was this whole structure of sadhanhood which was developing. Now, abhi bhi shayad ek do sadhan bachi hain, but basically these were women who converted themselves to male. And this leads us to so many other layers that we'll need another lecture on this. But definitely they were more empowered. And also the marriage, I think the number of women as compared to men were less. So they were either you had to pay bride price, or you have to be a ghar jawai, or there was a bata sata in which either you will have to give your sister to the family in order to take a woman from there. And it was a fairly, any pastoral community is a fairly open society. The possibilities of negotiations are much more available than they are in the middle classes. So I actually see that the middle class is coming in, despite education, women being now financially becoming independent. The traditional ways that existed also had many of the, so even if a woman, you know, one of the ways was that the woman will get married, a widowed woman would get married to the hearth, which Khandu ki parampara thi. And then she was allowed to have relationship with any of the men in the clan or outside the clan, wherever she wants, because it was completely forbidden. It was so much dignified process that you could not ask the name of the man with whom she had a relationship. So even if after 10 years of death a child was born, the only condition was that she stayed in her in-laws house, she married the hearth of the house, and even after 10 years of a child being born, will get the property and the name of the deceased husband. So yeah, it's a whole new chapter. We need to discuss it separately.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? If anybody wants to comment or ask, the floor is yours. So, okay, because there's silence, I would like to say that this was really, really enlightening as always. Thank you, Dr. Kaushal, so much for telling us. And of course, somebody has just put on, Anjuji wants to ask you a question. Of course, please ask.
No question, just a big hug, virtual hug. It's a very, I mean, one is very touched by the narrative. And there's so many stories. One felt the paucity of time. And I hope that we can continue this, not just as one, but more. That is what I felt, that there was so many things. And maybe we can have another session if time permits. And Sonali, so the request is more to you and to Molly, if you could help out with that, because a huge amount of narratives have come out. And so maybe something on the women which you've written as an article,
Yes,
you want
sure,
to share. I
would
mean,
love
that by itself, because, because the masculine and the feminine is something which is deeply seeded into a unified sensibility, and yet there is a difference between the two. So there is a lot of metaphysical connotations attached there. So I don't know if we get the time, just a request.
Thank you so much. Really touched. Thank you.
We definitely do that, and we do have a question from Dr. Sanjeev Sharma.
No, I have no question, Sonali. Just I would like to thank you, Sonali, especially for you, for arranging this wonderful lecture. So on behalf of all the Gaddi communities and all academician and researcher, I would like to thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I do want to say, like, this summer, thanks to Corona, all my plans were spoiled. But my co-collaborator in Australia, we got a grant, and we were planning to take students on this transhumans kind of journey.
Vibha wants to ask something. Vibha wants to ask something.
Okay. Yeah,
okay,
sure.
very quick. Very quick, okay? You can hear me now. Yeah, Molly, I was wondering, I mean, it was a wonderful presentation, and thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, because there was another person in the audience who was talking about something, and I was saying, I wanted to find out in the colonial times and otherwise, like we were talking about the census, and also that now several Gaddis have become sedentary. And could you tell us more as to when did the trend start, and does it also have something that there is a trend that all the nomadic communities, pastoral communities, especially the transhuman communities that practice the transhumans, governments seem to want to settle them? You know, it's almost like that they are not in their control because they're moving from one area to the other. And that seems to have affected the Gaddis also. And what does it say in the narratives, and what do they say about it themselves, this kind of sedentary life? Or is it also to do with the population that, okay, some people can carry on to be pastoralists and move about while the others can carry on in different professions? But at the same time, because there's house tax, there's land tax, the land has to be divided, all kind of political boundaries and everything comes in. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Again, which takes us to a whole lot of another history of the Gaddis. I think a lot of it has been written by Sabharwal, you remember. It's very interesting. See, whether you are a pastoral or not pastoral, there is this whole idea of having a home, which is very important. And there is this, the Gaddis have this ritual. जब मणि महेश जाते हैं तो वो कोठी बनाते हैं, और वो कोठी बनाते हैं ताकि एक उनको अगले जन्म में एक घर मिले और वो घर में रह सके. एट द सेम टाइम जरूरी नहीं है कि वो सेडेंटरी होना चाहते थे एक पॉइंट में, बट यू नो द होल हिस्ट्री ऑफ द रेवेन्यू डिपार्टमेंट एंड द फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट के बीच में, देन यू नो अपार्ट फ्रॉम देयर सेक्रेड ग्रोव्स they started demarcating, you know, protected forest. तो pastoralism जो है कम से कम उनके लिए attract होने लगा. It's a very tough thing. And when horticulture developed, and when the forest department insisted on sedentarizing, so obviously this whole politics of controlling the moving communities who can't be pinned down is one big factor, but it is also another factor. Then education comes in, technology comes in, other patterns of livelihood come in, and then there was a question of children को बच्चों को पढ़ाना है. तो पहले सर्दियों में तो पालमपुर कांगड़ा जाते थे, वहां बच्चों का स्कूल लगता था. ऊपर धारों में चले जाएंगे तो कोई देखने वाला नहीं है. So gradually, of course, this began. And Bharmor was always their home. So it's not that the Gaddis did not have a fixed home ever. Bharmor was their fixed home. There they will come and they'll stop where the children lived, where their women lived, and वो धारों में उनके साथ जाके मिलते थे. And gradually, of course, so many factors led to the fact that Gaddis started selling their herd. And अब अमीर गद्दी तो अपनी भेड़ें नहीं चराते हैं, ज्यादातर पाल ही हैं जो उनकी भेड़ों को लेके जाते हैं. And so many other venues are open. But yes, something is lost, and so I think Ramlal ji wants to add something to it. तो एक बार आप अनम्यूट कर लीजिए अपने को.
अनम्यूट हो गया. हेलो.
हाँ जी, आप अनम्यूट हैं.
हाँ हाँ, आ रही है आवाज मैडम? हेलो
जी आ रही है, बोलिए आप प्लीज.
आवाज आ रही है?
आ रही है.
आ गई,
बोलो.
हाँ 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 हाँ, बस ठीक बोला आपने, सब सही है.
अच्छा,
बहुत अच्छा लेक्चर था.
हाँ
हाँ हाँ. तो काफी पुरानी हमारी जो संस्कृति है उसको दर्शाया, पुराने कल्चर को अच्छी तरह से दर्शाया है इसमें. नई जनरेशन को तो शायद पता भी ना हो. ये हमारे जगदीश जी जुड़े हुए हैं साथ में.
अरे वाह, कहाँ पर है जगदीश? वाज माय रिसर्च असिस्टेंट. कहाँ है जगदीश?
लाइन पे यहीं जुड़े हुए हैं. विक्रमजीत शर्मा जी जुड़े हुए हैं.
अच्छा, थैंक यू सब.
नमस्कार मैडम.
बहुत बहुत प्यार.
जगदीश जी जरा बोलो.
नमस्कार मैडम.
हाँ, नमस्ते. क्या हाल है आपके?
बिल्कुल बढ़िया. इट वाज रियली नाइस टू सी ऑल ऑफ यू. इतना बढ़िया आप लोगों ने जो प्रेजेंटेशन दिया है, इट इज रियली ग्रेट. मतलब दैट इज ट्रू कि मोस्ट ऑफ अस इवन डोंट नो अबाउट दिस जो आपने ये बताया है. और आई एम रियली वेरी सरप्राइज कि इस गद्दी कम्युनिटी के बारे में नॉट ओनली यू, we knew that you are connected to it, you keep on doing some research work on it, but many other people are also doing some research work and they are also talking about it. We are really grateful and thankful to you and your team. But I would like to ask one question, because I am sorry I joined just in between this presentation. We would basically what we understand is the root of Gaddis. जो हमारा ड्रेस है, जो अटायर है हम लोगों का, इट इज मोर सिमिलर टू राजस्थान एंड गुजरातीस, चोला एंड लहंगा एंड एवरीथिंग. सो एंड अभी आप बात कर रहे थे कि मतलब बहुत पहले से जो है गद्दीज आर देयर, इवन पुरानों की बात हो रही थी. तो is it like that, or it is the recent migrations for 500-600 years back from the Rajasthan, Gujarat? What is your research? I would just like to understand that.
हाँ, थैंक यू. अच्छा, इसके बारे में अभी पहले भी एक सवाल था जब हम इसकी चर्चा कर रहे थे. तो बहुत सारे लेवल्स हैं. एक तो हमारे यहाँ पर पहले एक पूरा गुजरात स्टेट था जो पेस्टोरल का ही था. सबसे पहले हमारी इकोनॉमी पेस्टोरल ही थी. तो लोग ऊपर से नीचे, नीचे से ऊपर हर तरफ से आते और जाते और घूमते रहते थे. एक जगह में उन्होंने अपना वो नहीं बना के रखा हुआ था. बहुत सारी माइग्रेशन. अब आपकी जो सिर्फ लैंग्वेज है, दैट्स आई वांट टू टेल एवरीवन एल्स आल्सो. It's very interesting that how the Gaddi language, it has the inflections of both Gujarati and of Sanskrit. So आपके verbs जो है ना, वो जैसे वो संस्कृत से आ रहे हैं और उसका जो inflection हो रहा है वो आप गुजराती से ले रहे हो. So all this language, the dress, this reflects that there was a constant travel happening. It doesn't necessarily mean that all Gaddis came from Rajasthan. It doesn't mean all Gaddis came from Gujarat. But definitely there have been waves and waves. आपके पास खत्री भी आए, जैसे उजरिया, लाहौर, पेवसिया, बरमौर. तो खत्री लोगों का माइग्रेशन भी हुआ. औरंगजेब के टाइम में भी माइग्रेशन हुआ और उससे पहले भी यहाँ पे जातियां रही. तो ये अभी एक मेरा आर्टिकल है जो मैं आपको भेजूंगी, जिसमें मैंने पूरा राणों के बारे में, फिर किस तरह से किनशिप सिस्टम्स बनी, क्यों बने, कभी उसमें क्या उभर के आती है आइडेंटिटी, तो उसके बारे में डिटेल में बात जो है हम करेंगे. पर कनेक्शंस पूरे भारतवर्ष के साथ हैं और वो भाषा तक में रिफ्लेक्ट होते हैं. और उसी तरह से ये भी नहीं कहा जा सकता कि सिर्फ राजस्थान और गुजरात से माइग्रेशन हुआ, और ये भी नहीं कहा जा सकता कि यहाँ पर पहले कोई जाति मौजूद ही नहीं थी. और इसीलिए हिस्टोरियंस के सवाल अलग होंगे, ज्योग्राफर्स के अलग होंगे, पर और आपके अलग होंगे. और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट ये कि आप ये पूरी इंफॉर्मेशन और अपनी कल्चरल मेमोरी को लेके अपने आप को किस तरह से देखते हैं और अपनी उस मेमोरी को कैसे बार बार रिकलेक्ट करते हैं, रिवाइव करते हैं, सेलिब्रेट करते हैं. अल्टीमेटली सेलिब्रेशन ऑफ योर लाइफ इज व्हाट इज सबसे बड़ी. तो उसमें जो भी यादें आपकी कल्चरल हैं, जो आपको हिस्ट्री से आ रहा है, जो आपको ज्योग्राफी से आ रहा है, जो आपके अपने गीत आपको बता रहे हैं, आपके रिचुअल्स आपको बता रहे हैं. आपका जो निवाला का रिचुअल है वो इतना आर्काइक और एंशिएंट है, इस रूप में वो पूरे भारतवर्ष में कहीं नहीं मिलता है. और उसका पहला जिक्र जो है वो हमें आर्किटेक्चरल टेक्स्ट में मिलता है, जो बाद में स्टेला क्रेमरिश और सब ने इतना उसको. तो आपके पास तो जो खजाना है अभी वो निकल के आया ही नहीं है. पहले तो उसको सजोना है ताकि उसे समझें और तब आपके रूट्स तक हम जाके पहुंच सकते हैं. ऐसे यहाँ हवा में ये मैं बोल दूं या वो मैं बोल दूं तो सब कुछ सही भी होगा, सब कुछ मिथ्या भी होगा, गलत भी होगा.
Hello, Sonali, can you hear me?
Yes. Before you speak, I just wanted to mention something that by me and my co-collaborator in Australia, we got a grant and we were planning to do an interdisciplinary study, as Vibhaji just mentioned that we would be interdisciplinary research. We were thinking of doing, we're both archaeologists, anthropological archaeologists, so we were thinking of studying the transhumance of the Gaddi people to an anthropological way in order to understand the material culture. So I think more and more people, if engaged with this kind of research, bringing in art history, architecture, materiality, linguistics, and of course DNA sampling and all of that, I think we will get nearer the truth, if not to the truth, but it will be like a repository. And that's the reason of getting here together and talking about it. And with that, let's take Yashovardhan. Sorry,
No, that's fine. No, thank you. Thank you, Sonali.
You are in Canada, na, right now?
Yes, Molly ji. How are you?
What time is it there?
Well, I was awake right from 3 o'clock. Actually, I just didn't want to miss your. I've never missed your webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. If it's possible to cover that, you had mentioned some connections to Buddhism, the Buddhists.
I did.
Yes. Is it possible to just elaborate a little more on that? Because I find that quite unusual to have a Buddhist connection, because this is completely very Hindu oriented, and you have this Buddhist connection. So if you could just shed a little bit light on that, because I'm very much interested in Buddhism.
I think I answered. That was the first question I think Sonali asked, and I answered. I wish I had more information to share, but as I said, that the Buddhist part of this of Buddhist historic past of the Gaddis is completely a dark area. So we have only few instances, and whatever I will say would be only a conjuncture, and also on the basis of some of the iconography. I will even surprise you further. Gaddis have a word. The Gaddis have Kazakh in their lexicon. You know how deep these historical roots they go, and Kazakh is a cruel man.
Oh, yes.
Where this connections comes from. So then you'll go back to the Shakas, and you'll go to the Huns, and what time, and we know that this belt has seen these migrations coming from all areas, and what were the historical relationships that the indigenous communities and the communities coming from the outside, because all of a sudden to have Kazakh in your lexicon, and the only connotation that they know about Kazakh, I don't even know if modern Gaddis know this, is a cruel man. So.
Okay, one more just curiosity. As you mentioned this, and earlier you had also mentioned that over the period of time, like things have been changing with this community. They are getting more modernized, and I think probably they are moving away from this this traditional culture. With that in context, would it be really easy, or would it be possible to find all these connection, Kazakh connection and the Buddhist connection, because is it not going to make it more difficult to trace out those connections with the changing lifestyle of these communities?
Yeah, because these can be prehistoric linkages that also exist, and these are very, very dark areas in history, and history cannot necessarily answer all questions. And it's not about the modern Gaddis of today. Even then 25 years ago, when I first landed in Vermont, and people were very, very traditional, even they would have no idea of these, because the cultural memory has not retained these narratives. And unless, you know, and the people who worked before that were so much into a different framework, and either they talked about transhumans, or they talked about hardworking Gaddi or a lazy Gaddi. So yes, we have very dark areas. So even if that not happen, I don't think that got answers. But as Sonali is saying, and that an interdisciplinary approach, we must form a group that looks at community from historical perspective, from historical documents, from the archives. As I said, that not much research has done. Then there are geographers, there are migrants who study the migration, there are people like me who look at the culture. So all of them, if make a collective, there is a possibility of looking at these issues with some more depth and with some more detail. Me talking here or sitting on the screen about them would be is a falsehood at best.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we have a couple of more questions, and in the order that I say the name, please take on the questions. So the first is Manoj Kumar, then we have Dr. Sanjeev Sharma, Dr. Manoj Kumar, Dr. Sanjeev Sharma, Dr. Nandini Bhattacharya.
So, can I say, Sonali?
Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you, Sonali, for giving. Acha, please you can ask. ओके सो मैं ये थोड़ा सा ऐड करना चाहूंगा क्योंकि कुछ लोगों ने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा है कि ये राजस्थान से आए हैं, गुजरात से आए हैं. सो ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ माय रिसर्च आई वांट टू शेयर विद यू दिस मे बी a debatable issue, but I worked in the Niti Valley, Niti and Mana area also. वहां पर भी ये इशू आता है कि यहाँ के लोग जो थे वो राजस्थान से आए क्योंकि उनके खेतों में चूड़ियां मिली. थोड़ा सा भरमौर को समझना है तो थोड़ा लंबा हो जाएगा, मैं 2 मिनट में खत्म करूंगा. इस तरह से समझिए जैसे आपका बड़ा बंगाल एरिया है और पांगी एरिया है. पांगी एंड बड़ा बंगाल एरिया इज टोटली आइसोलेटेड एरिया. सो आप 6th सेंचुरी या 5th सेंचुरी से पहले जाइए और मैंने उसको ज्योग्राफिकली और क्लाइमेटिकली एनालिसिस उसका किया है. तो जो राजस्थान का आदमी इतना जो उस टाइम 5 डिग्री 7 डिग्री टेम्परेचर होता था या 10 डिग्री तक टेम्परेचर जाता है भरमौर का, वहां पे उसका सरवाइव करना वाज वेरी डिफिकल्ट. दूसरा ये था कि रोड कनेक्शंस नहीं थे, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन फैसिलिटीज नहीं थी. अगर हम उसका हिस्ट्री भी देखें तो हम ये देखते हैं कि हमें राजस्थान या वहां से उसका माइग्रेशन देखने को नहीं मिलता है. रही बात ड्रेसिंग सेंस की, तो यहाँ राजस्थान में फील्ड सर्वे भी किया. वन ऑफ माय फ्रेंड ही डिड अ PhD ऑन गद्दी कम्युनिटी, डॉक्टर विशाल. सो ही कंडक्ट अ सर्वे इन राजस्थान जस्ट टू सी द लिंक विद द गद्दी कम्युनिटी एंड द राजस्थान कम्युनिटी, बट ही फाउंड नो एविडेंस. ड्रेसेस का सेंस इसलिए है कि ड्रेसेस जो गद्दीस की है या राजस्थान की है दैट रिलेट विद द क्लाइमेट. इवनली जो हम लोग चोला पहनते हैं या गात्री पहनते हैं तो माउंटेन्स में क्या होता है कि बोझा लेके बहुत चढ़ाई पे चढ़ना पड़ता है, तो इसलिए कमर को उसको कस के जो है वो रखना पड़ता है, तो इसलिए वो कमर के ऊपर उसको कसते हैं. दूसरा ये था कि उस टाइम बैग्स वगैरह हम इतना यूज नहीं करते थे, तो आपने देखा होगा कि गद्दी जो है अपना छाती के आगे या जो गद्दी औरतें हैं उसमें बहुत सारा सामान भी आगे जो है वो डाल लेती हैं. और कई बार गद्दी क्या करता है अपने 4-4, 5-5 जो बकरी के बच्चे होते हैं उसको भी रख लेता है. तो माउंटेन पे जब चढ़ाई करते हैं तो पीठ में दर्द ना हो, कमर में दर्द ना हो, उस सेंस के लिए वो यूज जो था वो किया जाता था. दूसरा उसका रेनफॉल के साथ रिलेशन है, सो मेनी रिलेशंस आर देयर. तो ऐसा एविडेंस नहीं मिला है कि राजस्थान से कोई आया हो, और ऐसा पॉसिबिलिटी भी जो है वो नहीं हो सकता है. वहां पर भी राजस्थान में आप देखेंगे तो वो पगड़ी पहनता है, यहाँ भी पगड़ी पहनता है. वहां पर जो पगड़ी पहनता है वो पूरा गर्मी से अपने आप को रोकने के लिए पहनता है. द सेम सेंस में यहाँ पर भी उसका क्लाइमेटिक रिलेशन है. ये वन ऑफ माय पेपर इज अंडर पब्लिकेशन, तो इसका मैंने पूरा देखा हुआ है और उसको लिंक जो है वो जो किया हुआ है. तो ऐसा हमें उसके साथ ऐसा रिलेशंस नहीं मिलता है कि ऐसे माइग्रेशन होके आए थे. दूसरा है कि वहां पर जो राजा भी आए वो भी आप देखते हैं कि वो 6th सेंचुरी में आए. वो बाहर के राजा थे, अयोध्या से आए थे, सूर्यवंशी राजा थे, और वो जस्ट एक हिमालय में आए थे, घूमने की तलाश में आए थे, शांति की तलाश में आए थे, और वो राजा बाहर से आए थे और बाहर को ही चले गए. अभी भी आपको ऐसा भरमौर में कोई भी फैमिली ऐसा नहीं मिलेगी जिसका राजा के साथ रिलेशन हो, राजा की फैमिली के साथ रिलेशन हो. तो उसका बहुत लंबा हिस्ट्री है. तो जस्ट मैं ये शेयर करना चाहता हूँ कि ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ आवर रिसर्च दैट वी हैव नॉट सीन एनी रिलेशन विद, बट ये सभी माउंटेन एरिया में है. आप उत्तराखंड में भी जाएंगे, वहां भी लोग बोलते हैं कि हम लोग तो राजस्थान से आए थे. जो भोटिया लोग हैं वो भी बोलते हैं हम जो तिब्बत से आए थे. कुछ लोग बोलते हैं हम राजस्थान से आए थे, हमारे यहाँ खेतों में चूड़ियां मिली हैं, क्योंकि पहले राजस्थानी औरतें चूड़ियां मिलती थी. तो ये मैं जस्ट शेयर करना चाहता था. थैंक यू सोनाली फॉर गिविंग मी द चांस.
And I do want to mention, like the cholas, even here the Gurs, they wear the chola which looks very much like the gaddi chola. And I think to basically decide really where they came from, I think we really need to do some DNA sampling, because here you've got the Malana people, everybody thinks they're from Alexander the Great army left behind, and I think that's why an interdisciplinary research is so important, where we look at things linguistically, from the scientific point of view, from DNA analysis, and from material culture, from oral narratives, all of that together, because that's our evidence, not just one strain, but a lot of them together.
जैसे हिंदू कुश, कैफीर, ये सबका ये इसके ऊपर, ड्रेस के स्टाइल के ऊपर और पेस्टोरलिज्म को लेके और ये पूरे एरिया को लेके कुछ थोड़ा बहुत काम हुआ है. So, but the point is, the moment any similarity is found in dress, immediate conjuncture is made कि वो ये गदीज कैफीर थे, ये हिंदू कुश से migrate होकर आए. But we've got to look at these things in a much larger perspective, और deep research की ज़रूरत है. बहुत जल्दी symbolic interpretations में नहीं आना चाहिए. तो आप के साथ बाद में मिलेंगे, बैठेंगे, आपसे सीखेंगे, आपको मैं बताऊंगी, आप मुझे बताना. बट बहुत जल्दी किसी भी तरह के conclusions पे जंप करना academically बहुत sound नहीं हो सकता.
Okay, so we have two more questions, Dr. Manoj Kumar and Dr. Nandini Bhattacharya. So I don't see Dr. Manoj Kumar's hand raised. So whoever wants to ask, please go first. Dr. Manoj Kumar and Dr. Nandini Bhattacharya. Yeah, Dr. Manoj Kumar, can you hear me? Or Dr. Nandini Bhattacharya? You need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Actually, I have it is a very rich presentation. I have very little idea of the area. So it is brilliant, but I have two questions. In the trail of the earlier question, is there any migration myth in the folk tradition of the Gadi community? Number one. And number two, I missed, I'm really curious about the dialect and script, if there is any, separately, the distinct dialect and script of the community.
Yeah, there are a lot of migration myths. सबसे बड़ी migration myth तो शिवा की है, और एक पेस्टोरल कम्युनिटी के अंदर migration myths नहीं होना, ये तो possible नहीं है. और बहुत सारी myths हैं, बहुत सारी sayings हैं, बहुत सारी historical myths हैं, और 3 myths जिसके बारे में मैंने apart from the Shiva's migration, मैंने जिसके बारे में बात किया कि वो राजस्थान से migration, गुजरात से migration, पूरा गुजरात स्टेट का जो रिलेशनशिप है इंडियन ज्योग्राफी पेस्टोरलिज्म को लेके, और औरंगजेब ने जनेऊ उतरवा दिए थे, 100 मन जनेऊ तोले गए थे, तो जितने लोग हिंदू लोग भाग के चले आए, तो वो सब जाके कुछ उत्तराखंड में बसे. तो ये पूरा राजपूताइजेशन एक जो हुआ है ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन का, उसके ऊपर तो बहुत सारा काम हुआ है. तो it's no point bringing उत्तराखंड को लेकर भी हुआ है और हिमाचल को लेकर भी हुआ है. So these myths are very much there. One myth जो आपको बताई कि उजड़िया लाहौर तिब्बतिया बरमौर, that is another myth. And तो बहुत सारी migration myths जो हैं वो आपको इनके बीच में है. और जो दूसरा आपका question, that your second question is about the script. So they all write with the Devanagari script.
Okay.
Well, I would like to supplement one, Dr. Molly.
और टांकरी के बारे में भी बात करनी चाहिए. हाँ.
Takri used to be the script earlier.
Yes. इस एरिया में टाकरी और खरोष्टी ये दोनों और कई कई एरियाज में आपको शारदा स्क्रिप्ट ये सब मिलेंगे. और क्योंकि कश्मीर के साथ और पंजाब के साथ इतना बड़ा रिलेशनशिप है तो अभी भी बहुत सारे आपको इंस्क्रिप्शंस मिलते हैं. और एक पूरी सांचा एक ट्रेडिशन है जो उत्तराखंड, इट इज ऑल्सो इन उत्तराखंड, इट इज ऑल्सो इन हिमाचल, और वो हीलिंग और उस सब से जुड़ी हुई है. सो टांकरी वाज द ओरिजिनल script used in this area. The present Gaddis write using the Devanagari script.
Thank you.
जी मैडम. Hello. Hello, can you hear me, madam?
Yes.
हाँ, सुन सकते हैं.
जी जी. I am Manoj Kumar from Archaeological Museum, Gurukul Kangadi University, Haridwar. I have two questions, madam. एक तो आप जो जगन माता के मिट्टी वाला प्रसंग है उसका जो लिटरेरी साइटेशन है वो मैं समझना चाहता हूँ. जो आपने जिक्र किया है कि ब्रह्मा जाते हैं या विष्णु जाते हैं, लास्ट में गौरी शंकर को फिर वो अपना जो सॉइल ऑफ वोम दे देते हैं, है ना. तो इसके बारे में लिटरेरी रेफरेंस देने की कृपा करें. और दूसरा जो एक सवाल है कि क्या हिमाचल में भी राजाओं को पोन कहा जाता है आजकल या पुराने समय में जब आप रिसर्च कर रही हैं?
मैं समझी नहीं, क्या कहा जाता है? राजाओं को
हिमाचल
क्या?
प्रदेश में पोन शब्द का प्रयोग किया जाता है राजाओं के लिए, क्या वहां भी किया जाता है? और जो पहला आपका प्रसंग है जगन माता के सब.
हाँ.
जी.
ओके. तो पहला क्वेश्चन तो ये है कि जब मैं आपको ये कथा सुना रही थी तो आई हैड टोल्ड यू कि दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ देयर ओरल ट्रेडिशन. और
So,
ये
where there is any mention of the sacred literature either in Buddhism or in Hinduism or in Jainism, this legends, this story, this description.
नहीं, मेरा जितना इंफॉर्मेशन जाता है, मेरे को जैनिज्म और बुद्धिज्म के लिटरेरी ट्रेडिशंस के बारे में नहीं मालूम है. और वहां पर ये जगन माता और वो सब होने का कोई सवाल उठता भी नहीं है. वो डिफरेंट रिलीजियस ट्रेडिशंस हैं. जो जगन माता वाला कॉन्सेप्ट है और जो इस्तरबामी मिट्टी वाली कथा है, ये कथा ओरल नैरेटिव है. ये मौखिक वाचिक परंपरा में है, ये लिखित परंपरा का हिस्सा नहीं है. तो पहली बात तो ये हम. और दूसरा, राजाओं को बॉन कहते हैं, इसके बारे में मुझे नहीं मालूम. कोई गद्दी जो अगर यहाँ पर हैं अभी तो उन्हें अगर इस संदर्भ में कुछ पता हो कि राजा को बॉन कहा जाता है कि नहीं.
पोन नहीं, पोन
तो नहीं कहा जाता है. मैं इस शब्द को नहीं सुने.
थैंक यू मैडम.
Thank you. So, Nandini Bhattacharya, do you have another question? I just saw your hand raised again. Do you have another question? Dr. Bhattacharya, do you have another question? Okay, so I guess we are done here, and thank you so much, Dr. Kaushal. We learned so much about the Gaddis, and as Dr. Anju Khanna said that of course we need part 2 of your lecture where you talk about so many other things that have cropped up because of this. The narratives concerning women and metaphysical and all of that is so interesting, and how they are so linked to the persona of Shiva and his association with Parvati. So thanks so much again again. And just to give you all our future lectures, we will have Dr. Anjali Kapila. I will be talking about, Dr. Anjali Kapila will be talking about Ganga, the songs of Ganga. I will be talking about shamanism in the Western Himalayas. We will have Dr. Ian Baker. He will be talking about Tantra and Buddhism. Soon, we'll have Dr. Danny Stover. He will be talking about indigenous cultures and how to look at indigenous knowledge in Mexico. So some of these concepts are overarching, which really help us in understanding our own, the way we see societies and things like that. And we'll have Dr. Vilika Vendrick also coming in June. And those of you who want to present and have done research, Dr. Sandeep Sharma, and there's so many there illustrious people who we really want to listen to. So please connect with me. Connect and let's give you a slot so that each one of us benefits from your research. And keep yourself safe, cautious. Any last words of wisdom for today, for this Sunday, May the 24th?
I didn't get you, Sonali. You said something to me?
Yes, I said any words of wisdom as we depart this Sunday evening.
Yes, words of wisdom are thank you so much for having me on this show. I also want to thank Anjali, who introduced me to you and to the group. I'm so grateful. And I look forward to the other talks. And I'm so glad that so many of Gaddis have joined the forum because you're working in the Himalayan region. इनका अपना इंस्टीट्यूट है कुल्लू में, तो कुल्लू में भी बहुत सारे गद्दी हैं, तो आप इनके साथ संबंध बना के रखिए और एक साथ मिलके और रिसर्च करते हैं. Thank you so much.
And of course, I would love the Gaddi community to come here and talk about their culture. And of course, Dr. Kaushik, you and everybody, ma'am has introduced me to all of you. I'm so grateful to her. And I will be mailing the text. I haven't mailed it to Dr. Malik. I feel so awful that I haven't done that. I've been a little lazy, a little caught up with thunderstorms and other things. So I will do that, but I have all your talks and they will be uploaded. Thank you so much, and keep tuned for our next lecture, and we'll decide with Dr. Anjali Kapila if she's coming next week or I'm coming next week. So stay tuned and have a lovely evening.
And you take care. Yeah, thank you. You take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonali. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, all of you. It is 2 hours, I think more than 2 hours, and we are all still sticking on here. Thank you so much for being part of this talk. It was so encouraging, and it really helped me in becoming more confident as to what I have to say, how I have to say. And I've enjoyed all your questions, and I'm always ready to take more questions. Gaddis is my passion.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonali.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parth.
Thank you, Ramlal ji. Thanks, Sanju.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dipali.